Myself, Ben Raza, here with Fantasy Golf Man, Tim Frank. We're back on YouTube. We're back in business. It's the Genesis, all things good. As you just mentioned before we went live, I'm glad we weren't on YouTube last week for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. That was one of the roughest. I actually did good in DFS, but it was just a rough tournament overall in life.
Ooh, it was awful. And it was a weird tournament because of the fact that the wind got up on the weekend. So you had like really easy days followed by really difficult days, course rotations, amateurs. Yeah, I hated it. That was not JJ Spawn week.
Oh
I
my
was
goodness.
abundantly clear very early.
Duffner made the cut, and I consider that a win. I got so lucky because literally the only out that I had was on Sunday for having more golfers to be a net negative. And that's honestly what it basically was. Unless you were like Maverick or Berger, it was probably not good to be out there.
Yeah, there was a lot of guys crashing and burning. I don't know what, I didn't see what the stroke average was that day, but it felt like 3 or 4 over was probably.
Well, Ryan Brem by himself brought it down. He had a struggle out there, but that happens. Wind gets up at Pebble, that's what you see. I like tournaments like that. We're not going to see that, but we do have. This is the best tournament of the year so far, in my opinion.
I was like, I know it's a great tournament, so I was obviously expecting to see good names, but I mean, this is loaded, and it's an invitational now, so only 120-man field, so we got rid of a lot of the terrible guys at the bottom who we don't have to play. Unfortunately, Spawn is still here. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a major. It's a great course, great field. Yeah, this is definitely we need this after the Pebble Beach Pro-Am.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's here. I don't think Stenson is not here, but that's like the only.
Ricky and Woodland.
Stenson. Oh yeah, Ricky. So sick. What is he doing? Anyway, before we dive into Genesis, we do want to say right off the top, sponsors of the show, Super Draft, sticking with us as we appreciate it. And as you guys know, different format over there with the multiplier mode. You know, there's no salary constraints. You get incentivized to take some risks. And honestly, it's an unsolved format, which I always like. We've been encouraging people to play, and honestly, the response has been really good. A lot of members have signed up, and they really like it. So if you haven't, you want to use the promo code AWESOMO, you get $20 free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Get over there, check it out. We're going to be mentioning them throughout the show. But, you know, this is what happens with the PGA season. You know, it's a weekly sport. No Webb. I don't count him as an elite player. That guy's get him out of here. But
fraud.
It's what I was going to say. It's a quick turnaround with things like this when you have a weak field to a strong field, when you have a rotational to an invitational with a standard course. I know we're going to dive into what we normally do, but I did want to ask you right off the top, how do you weigh something like last week? Like, do you worry about guys who shot 78 on Sunday? I personally don't even care.
No, I almost throw out what happened last week just because it's such a different format. The courses couldn't be, further apart. I know it played difficult on Sunday, but I mean, that was all, weather related. So yeah, I mean, would I like my guys to have played well last week? Sure. But I'm not really paying much attention to it. And if a guy shot 78 on Sunday in terrible conditions, that doesn't mean a lot to me. Neither does Spieth shooting up the leaderboard on Sunday either. So
those irons, man, I don't know. We'll see. But one thing I just mentioned, this is an invitational. It didn't used to be like this. This is like Tigers tournament now. 120 guys. I like that. Still have the cut and everything, of course, but it's a little easier to get through. The one thing we've seen Riviera a million times. Having said that, I don't have the best feel on exactly what you need to do. It's pretty forgiving, but it's tough to hit fairways. It's small greens. I mean, do you have a prototypical golfer? Is it Bubba? I mean, who do you think in a blueprint would excel here?
Yeah, I mean, it's bombs away for me. I mean, I think you almost have to be long. Just looking at the last, I'm just going to read off some names, and it's a lot of names here. But if you go back like 6 years, just first and second place finishers, okay, and there's like 2 outliers in like 6 years. You have JB and JT, Bubba, Finau, and Nah. So we have 1 outlier. DJ, Scott Brown, and Peters. That's another outlier. Bubba, Kokrak, Scott, Han, Casey, DJ, Bubba, DJ. I mean, it's like Bubba DJ, and then I mean, it's just like bombs away for the top two spots in the leaderboard for the past 6 years, with a couple exceptions of Scott Brown and Nah. So I mean, I think you have to be long. The fairways are tight. It's just, yeah, long irons and long off the tee. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of around the green requirement as well. It's kind of like a total all around challenge. I mean, I think you have to be long, but I mean, you have to have good long irons. You have to be able to scramble a little bit because it's a tougher course. Anytime, we see a possibility of a winning score, like around 10 under par or less, you're going to have to be able to scramble a little bit. So it's just really a good all around test, but I think you almost have to be long.
It's a weird course in the sense that I agree. Distance, it seems like it helps, but the par fives aren't, two of them are really not gettable per se. I'm not saying they're hard holes, but they're not where you're going to have a ton of guys making eagles. So it's weird that the distance, I guess it shortens some of these. And really what it is, unless you're in the trees, you're not in that big of trouble, in my opinion, if you're really being aggressive. So maybe that's where it comes from. Scrambling going to be important, but for par 71, two of the par fives are not going to give up a ton of eagles.
Correct. And then one of the par fives is basically a par four. The first hole is 503 yards. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Everybody in the field will have, like 180 into this par five on the first hole. And then after that, it gets extremely difficult. But yeah, I mean, I think it's more about the long par fours, in my opinion. A lot of long par fours, where I think the distance off the tee is an advantage. Also, obviously being in the fairway. So now you're looking at guys like Rory, Rahm, Xander, guys that can drive the ball with some accuracy, and then still you're hitting long irons. So yeah, I mean, just a great all around test. But I think, yeah, distance is very important in my opinion this week.
And then what do you make? I mean, listen, we're still on POA. That's the one thing I like I said, do I think it's a requirement? No, but I do kind of like guys that played a little during this West Coast swing and got some reps on POA. I do think that's an advantage. Certainly if you played last week, you did get some of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's all, POA and Bermuda, there's always guys that seem to just putt better on those surfaces and have stronger splits to one side or the other. It's not the end all be all, but yeah, I would prefer guys that have, I don't always just look at the putting splits. I just look at kind of overall results on POA and West Coast courses. So yeah, guys that have had success on West Coast courses, guys have had success on POA. But yeah, putting splits for me, it's not really the end all be all. I tried to go there with Berger last week and say I didn't like him because of the PO, and that was a mistake. But yeah, I mean, it's something to keep in mind. It's a unique putting surface, and there's definitely guys that have a little bit of an advantage. There's definitely guys that struggle on the surface, but for me, that's a secondary thing that I'll look at.
It is, because it's super high variance, small sample sizes. I mean, look at Sneds last week. Awful.
Yeah.
Awful on the greens. Maverick gained like 30 strokes. It happens, but that's secondary. I do think scrambling is more important than we normally see, though. You need to be able to get up and down. No matter how good you are with the irons, you're going to be tested. A ton of the par fives we just mentioned, you're probably not hitting the green in two. You may be in some awkward wedge-esque shots. So that's going to be important. And then, honestly, I think what's most important like this is understanding that pricing is going to be different. You're going to see guys, you're going to love your teams. That's just, this is a major. I mean, this is what happens when you have a field like this. Does that make it more difficult or easier for you to build, do you think?
I dislike, I feel like the pricing is especially soft this week. I dislike it because it feels like you could just make a million teams. Even just at the top, it's like three guys, Rory, Rahm, JT. It's really hard to separate. And it's almost like that all the way down the line. You get little clusters of guys, where there's like three or four of them. And it's like, it's really hard to differentiate between these guys. And then that leads you to just keep wanting to make more and more combinations. And that's difficult for me. I don't like to make a ton of lineups, but it's really hard to, just, pick and choose guys when there's really three or four comparable guys. It feels softer. I don't know if it's just because of the strength of the field or what it is, but yeah, I mean, you look down the line, you see some egregious prices, guys like Casey, guys like Rose, who we'll talk about. But yeah, I dislike it. I like a week where it's like, man, I'm struggling here and it feels uncomfortable, but this week it's almost like, hey, play whoever you want. And I know some people like that because they feel like there's really no obvious plays. But it's hard for me. I'm not a fan.
Same. I think, and this is just a personal preference, I think I have a bigger edge choosing between two not great golfers rather than organizing like who's better, Finau, Decky, Cantlay.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
I don't know. These guys are all amazing.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to choose between, Chase Seifert and the gang, I think I have a better pulse on those type of guys. It makes it more difficult. You can get into trouble, and this is something that we preach. You can't play everyone. You're going to have to take some stands against guys that could be objectively really good players. That's just how it works in fields like this. So it's a perfect segue to kick it off. I mean, we've got 5 guys north of 10K, starting with Rory, number 1 golfer in the world, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, JT, Tiger, and Dustin Johnson. I mean, what do? You have a preference? Is it JT? I know it's going to be JT for you because you're sick.
Yeah, I'm sick. I'm a JT guy. I just am a JT guy. First of all, let's just start with the top 3: Rory, Rahm, and JT. I mean, you can't make a wrong decision up there. They're all great fits, all great form, all have good finishes here, all bomb it off the tee. I just think obviously JT is the cheapest. That's not really going to come into play too much because we talked about how soft the pricing is. I just like his game. I feel like he's got just a little bit more of a well-rounded game than Rory or Rahm. And just, short game, putting, short iron, stuff like that. I feel just a little bit more confident in JT than I do the other guys. He was good at waste management, came charging on Sunday. The ball striking was good. The ball striking is always good with him. He leads the field plus 1.6 off the tee and on approach. He's my favorite, but you can't. You really can't go wrong with any of the 3. I just like JT because he's just a little bit cheaper, and I just a little bit more confident in the kind of like the from 125 and in the short irons around the green, the putting. I feel like with Rory and Rahm, once in a while that can be a little bit shaky.
So I'm going to split the difference. I agree with that. I don't agree with it over Rory. His game is more well-rounded than it seems. He's playing out of his mind. He came to farm. He lost strokes off the tee for the first time ever. Now, You bring this up, though. That's going to inflate his approach numbers a little. And you see he gained a boatload of strokes on the approach, but we never basically ever see him lose off the tee. That was shocking. He still came in 3rd. He's just on another level right now. JT would be 2nd, and then I'd go, oh boy, I'm going to open it up a little more because, I think DJ would be 3rd if I had to rank the top 5. He's the one that I really don't know what to make of. We know he's coming back. He's gotten some work. He was not good at Pebble. He wasn't terrible. What do you do with him? You mentioned you rattled off the 1st and 2nd, so we know he likes Riviera, and he's the cheapest of the 5.
Yeah, I love DJ. I think he's going to be really popular at 10K because it just feels like you're getting a real discount on him. The course history is amazing. He's just, it's like year in and year out. T16 or better in 8 of his last 10 trips here. T4 or better in 6 of his last 10 trips here. He's got to win. I guess there's some perception that maybe he's a little rusty. He was right there through 54 holes last week, just had a poor Sunday. And like we said, I'm apt to just kind of throw that out in the really windy conditions. Obviously he wasn't sharp. He wasn't good on Sunday, but the conditions were tough. And in Saudi, I know that wasn't a super strong field, but, it showed, he was playing fairly decent. And like we said, last week, Tournament of Champions, he was, decent at. I just think you're getting a discount on an elite player. Like he belongs. I'm not saying his price should be up there this week with Rory, Rahm, and JT, but generally he's in that in the vicinity with those guys. I think the discount nights, I think the courts nights, I think he's playing fine. So I like him. I just think he's going to be really, really popular. Tiger, I'm not playing. I never play. This was the one place he didn't really play or like when he was in his prime. I know he has like one runner up here, but the times he played here, it wasn't great. And I don't think his game right now really fits. This is a tough driving course, and that's kind of the one thing I think that's his weakness a little bit. So Tiger is easily the one to X out for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we talked about already at the top of the show. Like, I'm probably not going to play Tiger. It doesn't mean that I think Tiger's going to miss the cut or not even play well. It's just I think that JT and DJ and guys we haven't even mentioned have a better shot to play good, and the ownership I don't think is going to be that significant. In terms of difference, Rom is scary. I'm going to try to get some exposure because he's just unstoppable, but this is what we have to deal with. It's very slim margins, and my priority is going to be Rory up top just because he's a monster. Now, just for lineup purposes, if you click in JT and DJ, you're left with 72.5 for 4 roster spots. That's very doable this week. Do you anticipate trying to double up maybe on 2 of the big 5?
Yeah, I really am. Just for the reason of me is like I kind of have to make it uncomfortable, like when you're starting like a balanced roster, then it's just like I feel like the player pool could be so large because you're just encompassing so many players. For me, it's like I'm going to try and go 2 at the top, and then it'll force me to take a couple cheaper guys and maybe limit some of the exposure to the middle tier, which there's just so many guys. I'm just trying to kind of limit my player pool, I guess. And an easier way for me to do that is to kind of make it a little bit uncomfortable by playing 2 expensive guys. But I mean, and this is a tournament that's, elite players win elite tournaments, right? I mean, I think you're going to want a couple of these guys, it's tough, but I mean, I do. And I think it's doable this week with the pricing being so soft.
I mean, listen, I a lot of times like to undercut the entire 10K range and start balanced. I'm not saying it can't work, but you are living the thought of not one of them being necessary is to me almost inconceivable. There's just too much firepower with these 5. So as I fall apart here, but I think I'm going to stick with the big guns. Over on Super Draft, you've got Rory and Rom at 1x. You don't really get any incentive for bumping down to JT or DJ. So for me, I'm going to stick with Rory once again. But working down, we've got Cantlay. We've got Bubba, who's won in 14, 16, and 18. Brooks, who in the betting market is north of 20-1. Decky, Xander, who friend of the show, Alex Hahn likes. Tony Finau. What do you make of the 9K range? A lot of names here.
Yeah, I mean, same thing as the 10K and above. It's tough. It's hard to make a bad decision. I would say probably my favorite play is Xander at 9,200. He was right there at Waste Management. Just had a really poor final round, but he's crushing the ball off the tee, I think he's gaining almost a stroke. 1.1 strokes gained just off the tee, which I think is super important this week. I think a lot of people will be going to Finau. Really similar like stats, finishes, course history. But for me, I trust Xander's putter a lot more than I trust Finau's putter. And Xander's won 4 times, 3 of them being very big tournaments. I know that it's weird with the limited fields. He won the Tour Championship, won a WGC, won a Tournament of Champions, and those are all limited fields. I think that's more an oddity than anything. I don't think you can really make much of that. But my point is he's beaten elite fields. His best game can beat the best players in the world. Finau's great week in and week out. He has trouble closing the door. The one time he won was Puerto Rico. Just, I think Xander's just more likely winner than Finau, and I think Finau will have higher ownership. What do you think?
I think so too. Xander, listen, I'm in agree. I don't think there's anything to like Xander can't win in a full field, but hey, this is an invitational, so maybe you could argue that. But regardless, what I do take from that is that Xander can win in strong fields. A WGC is just like this up top. It has all the top players in the world. Now, of course, you're guaranteed 4 rounds, but Xander's got some pedigree. He's been runner-up at the Open, at the Masters. There's no doubt about that. Good driver of the ball. I like the spot, but I am sticking with it with Hideki. I'm just going to keep playing him. I don't care. The irons were once again fantastic. He's lost strokes off the tee in 2 straight. That's a little concerning. But we just talked about here, it's not that big of deal to be a little erratic off the tee. He's great with long irons. The scrambling, he hasn't lost around the green since Wyndham, which is back in August of 2019. I think I'm going to stick with it, and I don't think ownership is going to be there just because of how many names we have in the 9K range.
Yeah, you're like in this rut that I was in around the middle of last year, where it's just like I'm going to keep playing him, and he played well enough to want to keep playing him and never quite got there. Great, a well-rounded game. I think that's important. I always look at ball striking and tend to not look at the short game, but this is a week where you're going to have some around the green game. I can't fault you there. I think after Xander, I'd be looking at Bubba. I mean, it's hard with Bubba because he just seemingly came out of nowhere. But the numbers from the last 2 events have just been off the charts. I mean, so good at waste management and so good at Torrey Pines. The ball striking was phenomenal at both of those places. And just all of a sudden, he's kind of like we're seeing like prime Bubba. He's won here 3 times. The consistency scares me. He seems like I feel like Cantlay is a better cash play, definitely a more consistent play. But man, Bubba, it's not just the finishes. I mean, the stats have been amazing too. And this is a Bubba course, and we know what he does at Bubba courses. I don't love him, but he's intriguing to me. Cantlay is awesome, great all-around game, safer play. And then I think Xander's my favorite play in the 9K range.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in line with that. Bubba, to me, I'll probably roll the dice and not use him much. I don't view him as good as these guys. I know there's Bubba tracks, and this is it's the home base of the Bubba tracks. The guy dominates here, but I've got Cantlay. We have to talk about what are you going to do with Brooks?
It's not a major, so he's not winning. I don't care. No, I mean, we've seen him twice on the Mideast on the European Tour, and T17, T34 didn't do a lot for me. I don't think I'm going to play him. The price is nice, but it's just, you almost have to manufacture reasons not to play some of these guys, because or else you're going to have literally every guy above like 8K in your player pool.
Yep.
Would I be shocked if he came out and won this? Hell no. But, he hasn't shown enough coming off the injury, hasn't shown enough in the European Tour in weaker fields, even though they were decent events, weaker fields than this, obviously. I don't think I'm going to go there.
I like him more as a bet, to be honest. I think that there's if you told me someone in the 9K range is going to get cut, I would say it's Brooks. But I still think the ceiling is not affected. I just worry about where the game is at as a whole. So that's kind of how I'm approaching that. Cantlay's phenomenal. Finau, all those guys. I think I'm with you. Decky and Xander. Now we get the string of Aussies. We got Scott Day and Leishman as we work down. We can get to Rose right now if you want. He is, I think, the guy that stuck out the most to me at 8,500. What do you make right above him, or is it just funnel to Rose and move on?
I think Scott is intriguing because I don't think anyone's going to play him.
When's the last time he's played?
He won the Australian PGA?
Yeah.
Not a good event. That was the last time he's played.
And that was in 2019.
Sure. The very end. It's the very end of 2019 wasn't that long ago.
That's I don't remember what I did Sunday, so it feels like a long time ago. That was before Christmas.
Okay, but I guess my point is good course history. I think he's going to go very far under the radar, especially with Xander at 9,200, Finau at 9,100. I don't love him, but just I think a low ownership play. Day, I'm so sick of Day, like 340 to the fairway, and then he's got like 120 yards in, and he hits it like off the planet, like from 120. It's like I'm just so sick of it. I don't think
the shots last week. I was like, no, this can't be real. But it was all legitimately 96 yards to hole, and then it would just be 45 yards in the native area. I like unreal.
I'm like a 20 handicapper, and I think I'd be like a coin flip on him from like 110 yards. I swear.
So bad.
No, I just not. I don't think I can do it. I think the results are deceiving. T4 last week. We don't have stats from all the courses, but it didn't appear that he was striking it all that well. And I know, I just like looking on Twitter, I think the first round at Pebble, I think was all like short game. I don't have the numbers in front of me. And then he was T16 at the Farmers, but I think he lost like 2 strokes ball striking there too. So no, I'm not going today. I'm playing Rose. I think everyone's going to play him, but I think at 8,500, it's way too cheap. You're getting a great discount on an elite player. He's 40-1 in the betting market. That's probably a good bet too. And I mean, he missed the cut at Farmers, and then besides that, we really haven't seen him much. He won he was runner-up at an event in Singapore. Obviously, terrible field, but whatever. He was second. Fifth at the Hero. It's like we just haven't seen him too much, and I feel like that's what's driven the price down rather than we've seen him a lot and he's been terrible. I mean, he's missed 1 cut at Torrey, and besides that, we just haven't seen him. But I mean, I'm not worried about him. 8,500, I think, is a great price.
I'm not worried about him at all. This is an experienced guy. Like, the only thing I'm worried about is he's going to be extremely popular. Yeah. And when you have viable pivots, and they are viable, that's something to consider. But
like Spieth, is Spieth a viable pivot?
So this is a mega mind. You're going to see the gears working over here. Everybody is going, not everybody. People are going to take Rose and they're going to pivot to Spieth. The actual pivot is Patrick Reed, who nobody's going to go to. You heard it here first. Probably heard it here last too, because I don't think anyone's going to do that. No. It's just kind of a gut feel. But Reed, great at the Farmers, gaming across the board. Nobody's thinking of him. Everybody's going to go to Spieth as the pivot of Rose. When I pivot, I'm going to go elsewhere. Give me Patrick Reed at really low ownership and roll the dice.
Nobody's going to Reed because this is like the ball strikers of ball strikers course. Like the most, like you have to be long and straight off the tee and great long irons.
Nah.
No.
It'll be fine.
This is not a Reed course. And it's not a Spieth course either. I mean, you have to be strong. You almost have to be strong off the tee. Now, can anybody just go unconscious with the putter like Kevin Na? Sure. But I mean, that's not really what I want to rely on. I mean, guys like Spieth, guys like Reed, not strong off the tee game. I'm not going there.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Do you see any relation between this and Augusta?
No, but I mean, there's a lot of overlap in the leaderboards, but
well, of course.
Well, right, but I mean, people go off of that, and I guess you can draw similarities, but I don't know. Augusta's wide open. There's not Poe Greens at Augusta. This has more narrow fairways. I don't know.
It's more to me that this is somewhere where I really think that being crafty around the greens can kind of do some things that aren't going to add up, where it doesn't have the same similarities because you're right. It's not wide open and whatnot. But I ultimately feel that regardless of what happens off the tee, you're going to have opportunities, A, to make some putts, and B, more importantly, to scramble. You have to scramble here. So that's where Reed goes into play. Listen, Justin Rose is a cash guy. Justin Rose is a good play. I'm going to have plenty of Justin Rose. But, man, I just, if you had to pick one of them, would you rather play Reed or Spieth?
Well, I'd rather play Reed, but I'd rather play JJ Spawn over Spieth.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going out of control here. You have no interest in Phil, do you?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we don't need
This is like just a range of like awful, awful golfers. Like Reed, Spieth, Phil. I mean, a lot of wins between them, a lot of money won between them. But like there could be like 2 fairways hit by the group of them in like the first and second round. I don't know. Just
not impossible. I will say real quick, I have a betting article that's free, as well as my DFS article. They're both free today. Go check them out. But one of them breaks down the Spieth Mickelson head-to-head matchup. I bet that, which is a new low in a series of lows in my life. So go check that out. As we work down, Colin Morikawa is going to be another lightning rod. 8,100. You have Sanjay right there. This is a great range though. And this is a range when you look at like super draft, it's that next tier. You're starting to get into the like 1.25x. Gonna have some good multipliers there. But what do you make of Morikawa, Sungjae, Paul Casey type guys, or is it Bryson as we work down?
No, definitely not Bryson.
Oof.
I mean, this is a tough one because if you're just looking at stats, I mean, Morikawa just jumps off the page. His last 4 events, T25, T21, T21, T7. So that, good results, not amazing, but just the stats have been amazing. Off the tee has been solid. Approach has been one of the best on tour, gaining over a stroke around on approach. Did he make like 3? What was it at Waste Management? Where he made 3 eagles in one round. I mean, the scoring's been good, but it's just one of those things. What do you want to follow the stats, or do you want to follow the pedigree with a guy like Paul Casey, who played poorly last week, but I think long term, for him at 7,900, he has a playoff loss here. The last few years hasn't been great, but I think this is a good course for him. A guy that's won Valspar twice. Another longer, more difficult, kind of tough track, hard to find the fairway, or you got to find the fairways, need a little bit of short game. You're not going to see a lot of similarities, I guess, between Valspar and Riviera, but I mean, I think I can draw a couple similarities. I think this is a good fit for Casey. Again, I'm throwing out what happened last week. I really don't care. He seems very underpriced, but he's going to be very chalky too.
Another cash viable guy. I see some. Listen. You don't want to get too crazy with the course correlations and whatnot, but Valspar was on the short list for me.
Yeah.
Snake pits, bring it all on. I don't care. Don't get too don't put that X for Bryson and Sharpie just yet. I have some interest here. This is a range filled with, I think, really good cash floor type plays when you talk about Morikawa, Casey, Kuchar. The 2 guys, though, for me in tournaments that I might look to pivot with are Bryson and Sergio. Sergio can lean on the driver, not going to be on people's minds, starting to be a little better, found some form, good in the Mideast, coming off a 6th place finish in Saudi Arabia, 7,800. Any interest in Sergio off a popular Paul Casey?
Yeah, I mean, he would be a pivot. I like him a lot better than I like Bryson or Sungjae or even Kuchar. I don't like this course at all for Kuchar. So yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, he's played well in the Middle East, 6th, 23rd, and 8th. Decent course history here, as a couple T4s, a T13. I think it's a good fit. It kind of all lines up. And similar to Casey, just, good track for him. He seems underpriced. And if you're taking him, you're betting on pedigree rather than a guy like Morikawa, who you're just, obviously I think he's going to be a great player, but he's more of if you're just looking at the stats, that's going to point to Morikawa. But yeah, long term, I mean, Casey, Sergio, obviously much more pedigree, or much better pedigree than Morikawa.
Yeah, I think that really is. Listen, it's about lineup construction. If you have a lineup and you're like, wow, I've made some insane boom bust plays, well, I would suggest playing Paul Casey and not Sergio. If you play a lineup and you're like, wow, this looks like a cash lineup, maybe you roll the dice with a guy like Bryson. Then it doesn't work and you move on with your life. But other than that, as we work down, we got Matthew Fitzpatrick, 7,700, Ryan Moore, Kevin Na. This is where, for me, it really starts to fall off. Brandon Grace, dead range for me. Do you like anyone in the mid 7s?
This is where I start to play guys who have real problems on and around the green and where I could get in trouble. But there are a couple guys that I like here. JB he's been trending. He's got a really good course history here. He won here last year, has a bunch of top 10s here. His last 3 starts, T14, T16, T16, all positive ball striking. He's intriguing. I mean, obviously, I don't think he's the class of golfer of a guy like Sergio or Casey, but he's a little bit cheaper, and I'm intrigued by him. I love Cameron Champ, and he scares me. He's a guy who's a short game and around the green game could scare me. But we talked about, the bombers at the top of this leaderboard the last few years, guys like DJ, JT, JB, Bubba. I mean, he's right. He's right with those guys. The off the tee has just been incredible this year. I think he leads the tour in strokes gained off the tee, just absolutely mashes it. something like 1.2 just off the tee. And we talked about this before. The rest of the game is a lot easier when you can hit it 330 right down the middle. I mean, you don't need to be as strong of an iron player. You don't need to have as great of an around the green game. He's going to gain strokes week in and week out. I think the course fit is good. He's 7,400. He's been playing good. I like him.
I don't mind it, and it's mostly because of the opportunity cost. I don't like this range. I think you're going to have to start leaning on guys that do one thing very well. Hope the rest of the game kind of picks up. Noren, Neiman, both names just thrown out by Chad. I think those are pretty sharp calls. I don't have a problem with them. At the same time, I certainly am not making a priority to get these guys in my lineup. And your boy Russell Knox, good job, good effort yesterday or Sunday or whenever he played golf last. He really struggled with the POA. Do you have any interest going back to him? I know length isn't a prerequisite here, but at the same time, as you've shown, he certainly isn't what I kind of picture when I think about Riviera.
Yeah, no, he's one of the guys that really has a type of course that he plays well at, and this isn't it. He was playing decent going into Pebble, not spectacular, and then kind of the poor performance at Pebble combined with a bad course fit. I don't like Knox this week.
Yeah, me neither. Chad asked about Ryan Moore. He's hitting his irons really well, but he's not doing anything else good. I don't think it's the worst idea. I like him a little more than guys like Kevin Na and Cameron Smith, but for me, I'd rather play Champ or Noren or Neiman or Fitzy, anyone like that. Don't hate on Fitzy.
What about your boy Wolf?
Yeah, so I wanted to get to him. I don't know if part of it is that on gut feel, when I was ranking these new guys, I thought that Wolf was going to be the best. And now I don't want to say he's the worst, but he's not in the same price as Morikawa, and he shouldn't be. He's becoming just like an off the tee gimmicky guy at this point. He can't do anything else right now.
He's like a long drive specialist.
He'd be something in one of those long drive competitions. I mean, he's lost consistently with the approach around the green, has been terrible. That's the big concern with me here. You have to scramble, and he has shown that right now it's not really working around the green.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's one thing if you're great off the tee and the rest of your game is average. I think the off the tee game can kind of carry that. But it's another thing if you're great off the tee and the rest of your game is just a liability. I mean, which that's what it appears like
right now.
Yeah.
Chad has been asking, and so far so good with me and Molinari this year because I just haven't played him. 7K flat. Do you have any interest in trying to buy low, or do you need to see it first?
No, he's been god awful as a guy that's played Molinari. He's been terrible, and this is a terrible course fit in my opinion. So those two things, I'm out. I mean, the course history is awful, which I don't really care about course history, but it just goes. It kind of validates the fact that I just think this is not a good course for him anyway.
So what you just said there, I think, is the more important thing. And I get this is somewhat arbitrary, but if you asked me, without me knowing, how would Molinari play at Riviera, I would say I would assume not well. Then you look, and that's what's happened. That's a tough combo. There are some guys, and you've talked about this a lot, like Kisner at some places. He doesn't have a great course history, but you're like, this should set up perfectly for what he does. When I think about what Molinari does, I don't think Riviera at all. So it's a pass for me. I would rather roll the dice with JT Poston. EVR is here. He's someone that I have no idea how you really judge. Will you buy on the South African, who we really don't see too much on the PGA Tour?
No, I'll leave him. The Euro guys love EVR.
They really do.
They love to play that guy. And it's paid off a couple times. I feel like in majors or WGCs he's popped. I'm going to my boy Connors at flat 7.
The ball striking god himself.
Ball striking god, yeah. He's another guy, but you better pray that he hits, 72 greens, or else you're going to be in trouble. But yeah, I mean, he's been good. The putter and the short game was bad at waste management. He was T45. He gained 6.6 with the ball striking, lost 4.7 with the short game. Obviously, not good, but he was decent at Sony. I just think, he's good off the tee. He's got distance. He's going to hit the fairway. He's a great iron player. Won at Valero, which isn't a course comp to this, but similar, longer, tougher course where it's not going to be a complete birdie fest. I think that's the kind of field, or that's the kind of event, I should say, that would be a little bit of an advantage to him. You don't need to make 30 birdies to keep up with everybody. So if the ball striking is on, hopefully he can limit the amount of times he scrambles. I like him at flat 7.
I will say this. I pretty much across the board never play Jason Kokrak. I don't think this is a terrible spot. He could make my player pool. I worry about the scrambling, of course, but good course history here. We know what he can do off the tee. I don't mind him at 7,100. He's someone I will look to. I certainly am not prioritizing him, but this is a range I don't really like in everyone. So I'm going to need to find somebody. He could find his way into some of my lineups.
Yeah, I don't mind Kokrak. Not generally a guy that I play. Almost won here a few years ago. The ball striking has still been good. It's been the short game that's let him down, and I feel like he went on that hot run, and that was really, I feel like the past few years, aside from last year where he had that really hot run of like where he was insanely good for prolonged stretch. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I feel like the short game, he had like a bit of a resurgence, or it came around for a while. But his MO years past was always great ball striker, awful short game, and I think he's kind of regressed back to that spot again. But yeah, it's he's great off the tee. He's going to gain strokes with the ball striking, and you just have to pray for the short game. But yeah, you could do worse.
You could do worse. Listen, it's like I said, he was running like a god for a while. That's over. I don't know. It's one of the first weeks I really don't feel inclined to play Griot. And that's a great feeling because he lost 6 strokes putting at Waste Management. Just, do you have can you even play him, honestly?
Nope. Well, one of the only good thing I think I've done this year is I haven't played Griot since the restart, since the new year.
You haven't missed much.
And you know what? It's same thing with Molinari. This is just not a good course for him anyway.
No.
He's so bad with the putter. There's guys like Connors who, yeah, it's like, oh, that's a liability. But I mean, it's almost like pencil Grillo in for -4 strokes gained putting every single week, and that's a serious problem. And this is just not a good course fit for him. So I don't have any urge to play him.
No. So before we dive into the cheapies, I do want to say, if you haven't signed up for Awesemo Plus and you want to, we'd love to have you. Obviously, use the promo code PGA Strategy. Get 50% off your first week. You get behind the paywall, ownership, projections, leverage scores, articles. You have premium Slack chat, all that good stuff. We're doing a bunch of stuff, promos, giveaways. Obviously, we want you guys part of the community, but we really encourage you to come and check it out, even if it's just for a week, just to see what we got going on. Boy, you're going to need to dip into the 6s. I don't think it's a problem. There's plenty of names down here. It's just how low do you want to go and kind of how much do you want to go in? Brian Harmon kind of stood out to me. Carlos Ortiz is a name that I can't get rid of in my player pool right now. What do you make of the high 6s, and kind of where do you feel most comfortable?
Just as a name, I think your boy Poston kind of sticks out at 6,900. Just seems underpriced. He's not playing poorly. I like him. He just kind of stuck out a little bit to me as a guy. He's just kind of crunched in down here with guys like Grillo and some guys that are playing awful. So yeah, I like him. I'm with you on Ortiz. Strangely, has a really good course history here. T9, T26, T20, and the only 3 times he's played here. T25 at Waste Management, the ball striking was good, plus 3.2. I feel like he's going to be more popular than he should be. I don't know if he's going to be chalky per se, but for a punt, I guess 6,800, not quite punt range, but we're close. I think he's going to have more ownership than I think he would want out of a player of his ability and this price.
That's the one thing that's concerning. And tomorrow night, me and Jason Rosen will break that down in full. There are other names. You got Lanto, Patrick Rogers. I don't really have strong takes on most of these guys. I don't like them for obvious reasons, but you're going to have to get someone, whether it's Charlie Hoffman, Aaron Wise is there, who is just not playing great golf. As we work to the mid 6s, I mean, if you start JT and DJ, you may need someone like this. do you have a name in like the 6,500 range that you feel okay with?
Yeah, and I think the other thing we noted is it's an invitational, so it's a smaller field. Um, a better percentage of players making the cut. Obviously, we're down to T65 and ties this year, but only 120 man field as opposed to your traditional 144, 156. It's going to be a little bit easier. I'll put easier. I always want to put that in air quotes. Theoretically, should be a little bit easier to get 6 this week. So I have fire away with some of these punts. I like Luke List at 6,600. He's playing better. I kind of went through a stretch where he was kind of awful. But he's T25 at Waste Management, gained almost 3 strokes with the ball striking. T36 at Farmers, gained 2.1 with the ball striking, only 3 measured rounds there. Just absolutely bombs the ball. Top 7 in driving distance last 4 years on tour. So yeah, he was T15 here last year, T26. He has a T20. Good course history. And he's a guy who I think maybe last year or maybe 12 to 18 months ago, we would have thought, yeah, this guy might be, up and coming. He's a guy who maybe you'd see in the 8K range at an event like this, but kind of fell off last year. But it looks like it's coming back. I think, he's got the distance, he's got the course history, and the ball striking is definitely coming around.
I like List as well. I think this is, I don't want to put too much on it, but I think this is the week for him. If he has a really good week, you're going to see people start to gravitate towards him. You're going to see the price bump up. If he misses another cut, maybe it's just a little variance that he made 2 good starts in a row, and there's larger problems there. I don't even want to say it, but your boy, Kevin Chappell, is showing a little, 6,300, but we know he's not a great putter. He hasn't been doing much. He was 25th at the Pebble Beach. Any interest in we talk about this all the time. We know he's a better player than 6,300 in this field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to play him this week, but I mean, I think he's definitely one to think about because, yeah, he was T25 last week and flashed for a little bit. I mean, he was right up in the top 5. I don't remember exactly what point of the tournament it was, but he went on a little bit of a run. Plus, he's a California guy, went to UCLA. I think it's a great course fit for him as a guy. Another guy kind of similar to Connors who, great when his game is right. Great driver of the ball, great iron play, better on, longer, tougher courses. So I think all that lines up really well for him, and he's super cheap. So, yeah, I mean, definitely want to think about it 6,300. I got one at 6,200. Yeah, this guy is going to be like 1%. I don't think anybody's going to play him, but I played him at Waste Management. I mentioned how he just absolutely killed me, but Sam Burns at 6,200. He missed the cut at Waste Management, but he's plus 4.3 with the ball striking. And like I said, he was like 95% to make the cut there, had an epic meltdown and missed the cut. But he was T49 at Farmers, where he gained 4.5 with the ball striking over 3 rounds. He was T6 at American Express. Ball striking was plus 2.8. So he's got 3 really good ball striking events in a row. Very long off the tee. Traditionally a good putter, more of a Bermuda guy, but who cares about putting splits? I just think nobody's going to play him. I think he's super long off the tee, and the ball striking has been great. Should be coming in off of 3 made cuts. I think the missed cut at Waste Management, people are going to see that and probably think not think much of it. But he was playing very well and just kind of had a meltdown at the end there.
So a couple more names, then we'll get a couple quick betting things, and we'll get on out of here. Chad asked quickly about Nick Taylor. I have no interest. Great showing last week. I just not going to pay for him off the win. Do you have any interest in Nick Taylor at, low 7K?
No, definitely not. I generally don't like guys coming off wins unless it's like an elite guy who has 1 million wins and winning a tournament is no big deal. For him, I'm not going there.
Next guy up is Kevin Tway. He is 6,200. We know he's got length. He's actually in okay form. This is a guy he won at Safeway. I don't think that's the worst, like deep flyer, not going to be even remotely popular.
Yeah, I think I saw someone in Slack mention him, and I wasn't even thinking anything about it. But then I went back and looked, and he was really good at Waste Management. He was T37, T30. I think the ball striking was really good at Waste Management. Like you said, ton of length off the tee, and one Safeway. So that's a California event. Poe Green's obviously not the caliber of this event, but there's some things going there. And he's another guy, 3 missed cuts here. but who cares? I mean, he's 6,200. Down here, you're not going to find the perfect play. And yeah, I'm just kind of stuck on Burns, but I think Tway is a decent play at 6,200 as well.
And then you got Joel Damon, he's 65, making some cuts. Ball striking is pretty standard. You know what you're getting with him. He's not a good short game player. Not a good course history. I don't really worry about that. I'm a little indifferent. I'll say this. My sneaky guy of the week, not that I'm overloading on him, but I have some Martin Laird in the player pool. I don't think people are going to go there. Party Marty. Worry about the scrambling, but he's a POA guy. He's made a couple cuts in a row. Not that he's been good, but I have him at 6,500 over Damon.
I mean, List is the alpha play. Damon is like the beta play. I mean,
and then what's Martin Laird?
You just want an old guy who's going to bunt it around and like hit a bunch of hybrids to like 25 feet or 30 feet. Then that's what you got. He'll probably pencil him in for like a T40, but we want eagles, we want birdies, we want guys hitting it like 340 off the tee.
All right, very last guy, because we kind of glossed over him. Then we'll get Tim's molten lava betting takes. Is Max Homa? He's
don't.
I'm not really there either. I know he's playing very well, gained tee to green, but before that it was a rough stretch. I personally don't like the range as a whole, and I'd rather play guys like Noren or Neiman.
I think I X'd him out of my sheet altogether. How much is he?
75.
Yeah, last week I was stuck between him and RCB, and I'm like, there's no way you can play Homa over RCB, right? Because apparently you could play Homa over RCB, and he was like the chalk. I think he was like 18% and played amazing. I mean, yeah, he's playing great. T14, T69. I'm not buying it. I think the same thing as last week. So much more quality golfers in this range. Even Grace at 7,500. I'll take that straight up. Give me Grace all day over Max Homa. I think you do that 1,000 times, you're going to come out on top with Grace.
That's the thing. There's too many guys. It's not just like Max Homa or one guy. To me, you have Scheffler, Neiman, Noren, all the guys we talked about in the high sevens. I'll find the money. Over on SuperDraft, Homa 1.35x. That's not terrible, but Casey is the same multiplier. Champ is the same multiplier. Clearly have them ahead of him. Did you make a bet so far for the Genesis?
I have not bet anyone yet. Ooh. I mean, Burns at 500 to 1. No, even I wouldn't bet that because this is an event that's won by elite players. So I'm trying to figure out some bet with Burns. I don't know if it's like a top 20 or like a first round leader.
Top 75.
Top 75. Yeah, it's like minus 200 or something.
Oh, about catching tickets
yet. Kicking around Champ, who's 100 to 1. But again, it's tough because I feel like this is an event where an elite player is going to win. So the best that I could find to kind of fit that criteria, because you know me, I like literally have this thing where I have to bet a long shot every single week. With Sergio at 66 to 1, I think that's kind of the best bang for your buck as far as getting a good number, but also getting an elite player who can win this event.
I thought you might say Bryson, even though you don't like him. He fits that. He's 50. Yeah,
that's true.
And he's a winner.
66 is bigger than 50, though.
I can confirm. Listen, I have a betting article posted. I took a couple guys, not the Rorys of the world, but I think that Brooks Cantlay range. There's a Finau in there. You can look. This is a great betting event. You're going to get good prices on these guys, good head-to-heads, top fives, top tens. I think you can look there. And as always, Tim mentions it a lot during the show. Not that it's the end-all be-all, but you can find some pricing discrepancies when it correlates to the outright odds. But you can also look at like top 10 percentage and what those guys are lined at for safety as you work up top 20s. That's more of a can you find the weekend rather than win equity. Not everyone needs to win the tournament. So that's my final thing. In terms of lineup construction, you can be more aggressive this week. I'm going to jam probably a couple of the top end guys because I think the win equity is too much up there. And I'll see what I'm left with. I think I can deal with it. I have some guys in the lower ranges, but how do you approach kind of lineup construction for what is the strongest field we've had to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a stars and scrubs kind of week for a couple reasons. One, it's a slightly smaller field, so you're going to get, a little bit of a higher percentage of guys making the cut. I think this is an elite event. You want as many kind of cracks at these guys at the top as possible. And I also think, some weeks are just not good punt type plays. And I think there's a couple guys down there. A lot of times that's what leads me to play stars and scrubs. It's not like, we always want to play the stars, but is there any scrubs that you actually want to play or feel confident in? This week, there's a couple, and with the field only being 120 guys, I'm going to try and get a couple guys in at the top, take a couple punts because I think there's a couple viable guys down there, and play all the bombers because I think this is one of the weeks. This place, Torrey Pines, one of the few courses where I think you almost have to be long. Now, like you said, it's tricky because there is some short game requirements, but I think the length is even a bigger requirement.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like weeks like this mostly because I'm someone that, scrambling around the green, the ability streaks, bonuses are not as important. I do think this is one of the not few weeks, but certainly in the minority where you can just look at overall golf, bang for your buck with the golfer himself. Is he well-rounded? Does he have a glaring weakness? Because you're going to need to do everything. If you have something really wrong with the game, it's going to be exposed against a field like this. So yes, length will help. But if you're a nifty scrambler or you just do everything, we didn't mention him a ton, but someone like Sanjay Im who he doesn't really have a glaring weakness in the game. He can kind of do it all, even if nothing jumps off the page. That can be really useful at a place like this. So see what we get. It's a little warm up for Augusta, where we get Ian Woosnan at the bottom of the field and the old timers, you boys. God.
We got Steve Stricker this week.
Yeah. What did Steve Stricker? Is he playing with Tiger? I feel like I saw that somewhere. Steve Stricker, he's I think officially dust. He missed the cut.
Yes, he is.
Week.
Definitely not good.
He used to be the guy I would never play, and he would be like 7,000, come in 22nd, be a good cash play. Not really working anymore for old Steve Stricker, but we're going to get on out of here. Chat, as always, we really appreciate it if you can hit the like button. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'll be back tomorrow night with Jason Roslin, 8:30 Eastern. Again, promo code PGA Strategy. If you want to get behind the paywall, check out what we got going on. You get 50% off that first week. Thanks to Super Draft. Check them out as well. Good luck, everyone. We got a great tournament ahead, and we will be back next Tuesday once again.